This conference will now be recorded.
Could you just go back and repeat what you?
Yeah, I'm just gonna start over and repeat the whole presentation.
Hopefully if you recorded
Please
it
see,
just once.
I've recorded it a few times, but I just missed this one and maybe yesterday's as well. That's okay. And those are all posted online, all those slides that I was sharing. So we're gonna move into our presentation with our facilitator, Joe Segali, and we're gonna start with a little warm-up exercise with Mentimeter.
Hey, hi everybody, Joe Segali. A bunch of you already met me, so I won't go into my background again. We'll just get started. So we're gonna do an online polling just to kind of warm up. And then which will take probably about 10 minutes at the most. And then after that, we're gonna have an open discussion about the Southeast Quadrant relative to the goals that Kelsey just went over, and I'll be helping to guide that discussion. And one thing that we're gonna ask is for the folks that are online, when you wanna speak, if you don't mind just turning on your camera, and that will cue me visually that you wanna speak, because I'm kind of watching the folks in the room here as well as the screen and making sure everybody gets a chance to talk. So what you want to do is go on your phone or on your computer to menti.com. That's MENTI.com. Just type that in and you'll get the screen that's shown there on the presentation. So again, it's menti.com, MENTI.com. And then when you get there, type in the code 7338-6541. So we should probably switch over to that. 7338-6541.
Oops, there we go.
And we're going to show it up here on the screen as well. And it's if you haven't used it before, it's quite intuitive. You'll get it pretty quickly. Okay. We're just trying to get it up here in the room. Okay, good. You got it set. Okay, so you should be seeing the first question right now, which is, this is a little bit of a goofy question, but we'll just see how people are feeling tonight. What one word best describes your mood at this moment? And you can actually enter in up to 3 words. Is it working okay for everybody online? Okay, here we go. Curious, that's come up a lot in the previous meetings, and interested. Impatient, sorry. We'll get to the discussion here pretty soon. Engaged, excited, content, unsure, interested. Glad to see curious is popping up the most. I think there's a couple people that, we have 8 people altogether, 4 here and 4 online. There we go, everyone has answered. Okay, curious kind of rose to the top, and optimistic. That's great to see. Just a little quick feedback here. The next question is, what activities do you do in South Burlington? And you can pick all that apply. A couple more people need to respond and we'll have everybody. Great. It's interesting, the live work difference. That's consistent with the information that Kelsey showed earlier about people living, or people living outside of Burlington, working here and vice versa. So that's consistent, and it makes sense that everybody shops and recreates. And what about other? I'm curious what the others are. Anybody want to speak up on that?
Volunteer.
Well, that's right. I think they came up the other.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, we must have some more people.
Yeah, we have a few more online.
Great.
Also, one of the works is me. So there's only one other person.
Oh, you
who
answered?
works. Yes, I did.
Okay. I'm just going to review the vision and goals again, because the next 2 questions are related to these, and it's really what it's all about. This is the foundation for the plan. So it's being inclusive, fair, and just, and that's about creating opportunities for all residents and visitors. It's also about being equitable. Human focus is about investing in a high quality, human scale built environment. Climate resilient emphasizes sustainability for long-term viability of a clean and green city. And then opportunity oriented is being a supportive and engaged member of the regional and statewide community because of those connections are so strong in South Burlington. So my first question, this is just open-ended, so you can put in whatever you want to respond to, and they'll start popping up on the screen. But with these goals in mind, what one thing would you like to change about your neighborhood? And this is about the Southeast Quadrant, and I think probably most folks here are living there. Even if you don't, just go ahead and answer it. But a simpler way to ask the question is just, what is one thing you'd like to change about your neighborhood?
Farther away from Burlington.
Go ahead and put that in.
I don't have a phone.
Give folks some time here. It's a new question. It takes a second for the answers to pop up. I went through this last night.
So it's counting the number of answers, and when you want to display them, we hit enter on the.
Oh, yeah, okay. Conserve more open space. I've certainly heard that in the Southeast Quadrant. More garden space, sort of consistent. More pedestrian cycling infrastructure to reduce reliance on cars. A grocery store would be good in the neighborhood. Strengthen the interconnectivity with city center. That's good. Not sure, that's fine. Community center, meaning I assume that means
Indoor.
indoor.
Right,
Oh,
the
okay.
rec center in Colchester.
Yeah, or like something like the new facility in Burlington.
Anyone else want to answer? It's okay if you don't. Okay, gonna move on. So this helps us launch into the open discussion part. So when thinking about the Southeast Quadrant of the city, which goals are most relevant? And this is just help us, guide us. We'll talk about the highest ranking one first and take it from there. So these are the 4 goals, and you can rank them, and it's easy to do on screen. Should be intuitive. Always interesting how it kind of bounces around. Okay, I think that's probably everybody. So human focused is first. Climate resilient is second. Inclusive is 3. Okay, so we're going to switch back now. Thanks everybody for tolerating this. Hopefully it wasn't too difficult to do. And now we're just going to be talking. So if you want to just get out of this, Kelsey, and get the screen back up.
Are we only 10? Are we 10 respondents tonight?
There's
We are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10.
Yeah.
Well, this one is me.
Oh,
Yeah, so we have about 10 people. We've had, it's not the lowest participation so far. We've had one night that was a little bit less, I think. But it's a good crowd. It's a good size. We can have a good discussion. So we're going to start with human focus about investing in a high quality human scale built environment. So when you think of the Southeast Quadrant, you think of the city and think about that goal. Where do you think the need is for improvement? Where are the opportunities for improvement?
Public transportation.
So go ahead, Lisa, and just introduce yourself too, because everybody may not.
Lisa Yankowski, and I'm on Common Area for Dogs and Natural Resources. Transportation. I don't think public transportation probably could be improved out in the Southeast Quadrant.
Okay. Yep. Yeah, Michael.
Complete the conservation easement for the Wheeler Nature Park.
Can you say a little bit more about that?
Yes. there was to settle, to make a long story short, to settle some litigation many years ago, the city made an agreement with Jam Golf to do a land swap. And part of the commitment to the voters was that if we approve the land swap, they will create a conservation easement which would conserve the Wheeler Nature Park in perpetuity.
Okay.
And that hasn't happened yet,
Okay.
even though it's about 10 years since the vote. There were some technical reasons for not doing it earlier, but I don't think there's anything in the way right now.
Okay, thanks for that explanation. Other folks, Roseanne, did you want to?
Yes, thank you. And by the way, I didn't participate in that last thing, just because I was nervous since I had the wrong link and I didn't want to lose connection. So anyway.
That's fine.
Okay, yeah, but what you talked about what we could improve, and with Lisa, she mentioned transportation. I'd like to narrow that focus to bike lanes and protected bike lanes, not more road transportation, meaning autos and gas-powered vehicles, but that we add bike lanes and protected bike lanes, not just in the Southeast Quadrant, but throughout. And the second thing is to do greater protections, put greater protections in place for the rural lands that are in such jeopardy of being paved over.
Okay, thanks. Other folks have any thoughts? Also, what about what do you like about the Southeast Quadrant, and what maybe, again, thinking about, if we're trying to make it more human focused, what works well there and what maybe could you build from?
Mike Scanlon,
Yeah, Mike.
over in Dorset Park. Just to weigh in on what the two previous speakers said, I think about creating more human focus is creating this more human transportation in my view is connecting more to the rest of the community of South Burlington, in particular the city center. I think the bus stop, I live in Dorset Park, the closest one is Kennedy Street in Dorset. It's a bit of a hike to there.
Right.
There are pathways there, not all of them are completed, but sometimes it's not clear whether the pathway is for pedestrian or bicycle use. A clear delineation just to make it for both sides.
Right.
And also as we move towards, I know in the transportation group and some other groups I had a chance to sit in on, also talking about as there is the buildup of some of these new houses towards, let's say, Swift and Spear, that is putting in the infrastructure in advance. There was a comment made, I think,
Right.
yesterday quite accurately that I ride my bike there, and you have to navigate it with the pedestrians walking on the street, with the cars on the street. To get ahead of it, we are growing as a community. There are many positive aspects to that, but it's also very important, I think, to always have the infrastructure for transportation, for interconnectivity before the construction of the housing bills, just so we're not behind the curve as most communities usually are.
Right. Yeah, go ahead.
The question was, what do we like about it, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I wasn't sure. Well, there are lots of things I like about it. Obviously I like the open space, fresh air. It's a place that is accessible to almost anybody in South Burlington, to access open space, passive recreation of all kinds, walking, cross-country skiing, beautiful vistas of fields, grasslands, and woodlands. So those are the things I like and value about the Southeast Quadrant. South Burlington is lucky, and in some ways, compared to Burlington and maybe other places, unique in having that so close to where we all live.
Is that so? Is the open space, is that accessible to everyone? I mean, there is a lot of what appears to be open space, but is it open and publicly accessible?
Well, a lot of it is open to the public and connected.
Yeah.
There's the Hubbard Park, for instance, which is partly grassland, partly woodland. And there are lots of walking trails and ski trails there. Obviously, the Wheeler Nature Park is 110 acres now, and that's accessible to everybody. You know, I don't know if it's appreciated, but people also walk, certainly in winter, walk on the golf course, which is connected to all these parks.
Yeah.
Some private landowners are quite happy for people to walk on their property, open space. And it's just a wonderful
Yeah.
asset for South Burlington. And as I say, not many places have it.
Yeah, and the question is, and I'll go to you in a second, but like how to protect that and build off that going forward.
Well, it is protected, but under threat right now by a housing bill that's winding its way through the legislature.
Yeah. We're going to talk about housing next week, but yeah, it's a potential opportunity and a potential threat, I guess. But go ahead, Lisa.
Well, I'm like with Michael. I love, how much open space there is out there. But like for someone like me to go access it, I have to drive there. If I was going to use public transportation, I have to go to Burlington first and then come back. So there is that limitation. That's why I brought up better public transportation out that way. Because believe it or not, we have people who take the city bus down to use Red Rocks Park.
Right. I don't think you'd be able to get all the way there either, even if
Are
you.
you in Queen City Park?
Yeah.
So you'd have to bike all the way up through the Wheelock Barn and so on to get to the Wheeler Park, for example.
First, I have to get across Schaumburg.
Yeah, really. Yeah. If you survive that, and then the haul up Swift.
But
yeah.
they are connected. I mean, you are connected by bike paths and so on. So
Right.
Nice.
yeah.
Okay. So Roseanne, did you have another comment?
Yes, just remind me of the question. I thought, because which question are we on now? What do we like, or what was the human scale? I've lost.
Focus on the human scale
Okay.
goal at the moment. And what do you think works well in the Southeast Quadrant relative to that goal?
Okay, yeah. So yeah, what I want to mention is something that we hardly ever talk about regarding what's good for the humans, human beings. And that is the benefits of nature to us. We have an affinity as human beings. We're part of the environment and the ecology. We have an affinity for nature. And the closer we are to nature, the healthier, both physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, we are. I mean, there's all kinds of studies that say when you're in nature or close to nature, you benefit. People are more creative, they're less stressed, they're more peaceful. Medical, they provide views of nature, and patients heal faster when they can see nature. So that is essential for our survival, and that is something we hardly ever talk about when we talk about infrastructure and other things. Keeping the natural environment that we have is essential for us as human beings, in all kinds of ways, not to mention its benefit to us, from air, water, soil, food, etc. So that's what I really love about the Southeast Quadrant, is that is where most of our priceless treasures of nature happen to be. And we should do everything we can to preserve those, because that will help people that live in the area, close to the area, and people that visit us.
Great, thank you. What about any other folks that are online? If you live there, what are your thoughts about this? Okay, well, yeah, go ahead.
Metro Memorial Park is just an amazing resource. It's the activities, the accessibility to it, the variety of sports you can engage in the summer, the festivals that take place, the nice lighting put out there during the winter. I mean, and it also is a place that talks about human nature where people get together and you have all mingling, whether it's children in sports or whether it's the listening to the music and having food and the summer events. What would be great if, and maybe I'm in on the solution of a community center or a recreational center, like, and I know there's been talk about that up there to make that same sort of vibe of people and the human activity and activity year round through the winter as well. Because in the winter it does sort of slow down. You have the ice skating rings, but if there was a recreational center to keep that buzz going, that would be nice.
What just got approved in Colchester.
Yes.
Community
exactly.
farming, community gardens, community farming is
Yeah.
a fantastic facility, and we need a lot more. Some people, because they need to grow their own food.
Well, that's another spiritual aspect.
Another one?
Spiritual aspect.
Yeah.
Gardening is good for the soul.
It is.
But it's available in the SEQ.
Okay, so I get, you guys picked this as like the number one goal. Would anybody want to talk about why that is in the Southeast Quadrant?
What's the number one goal?
The human scale.
Oh.
I didn't choose it as my.
Oh, you didn't? Okay. Maybe it was just barely. Okay, let's move on then. Let's move on to inclusive, fair, and just. So it's about creating opportunities for all residents and visitors. So what's we'll start with on this one with like what's working well. I mean, is the Southeast Quadrant, are there opportunities for all residents and visitors to enjoy the benefits of the Southeast Quadrant?
Yeah, certainly the parks. Maybe more so in summer than in winter, but because I think certainly Underwood is much busier in the summer than it is in winter, but nevertheless,
But
it's accessible. It's
Well, it's
accessible
not
to anybody who can get there.
Right.
Public transit is an issue because it stops at Kennedy coming down Dorset. We'd like it to go as far as the Veterans Memorial Park, but it is accessible.
Okay. It's accessible, except
Not for handicap.
it's available.
It's available.
It's available, but you still have to be able
Accessible
to
is a
get
different
there.
word.
Yeah. Okay. What else? Go ahead, Roseanne.
Back to the accessibility and availability, the limitations obviously are protected bike paths and public transportation. But there's so many areas in the Southeast Quadrant that if you could, that have the opportunities for physical exercise, both passive and active, meditations, spiritual rejuvenation, it all, well, walking is sort of required. Well, not required, but if you can walk, you can enjoy the benefits of the meadows and the forest trails, the views. You don't even have to walk for the views, just look. So I think it's probably benefits everybody equally. So no discrimination there for the gifts that nature gives.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
No, you can go ahead.
Go ahead.
Penny Tompkins, I would actually argue that it's, no, because we don't have public transportation deep into the Southeast Quadrant where people could be enjoying those things. So unless you have a car, you can't go to Underwood. Unless you have a car, you could get to Red Rocks. I think
Depends
there'd
where
be a
you live.
bus.
You could get
But-
to Red Rocks by the bus.
You can get to Red Rocks by
Can you
the
ride a
bus,
bike
but
there?
there's a
Okay.
lot of areas, and that's not Southeast Quadrant. So Southeast Quadrant wise, there's no bus at Wheeler. There's no bus stop there at the corner of Swift and, so I would actually say that while it's available, very available, equity for accessibility is limited by, do you have a
Okay.
car,
And
or can you walk
Or a
around?
bike. You could bike there.
Sorry, Roseanne, go ahead and finish. I might have
sorry.
cut you. I might have cut you off. That's my fault. Go ahead.
No, I mean, the bike lanes go right to there. So if you have a bicycle, which is a lot cheaper than a car, you can get to them. You get to almost every place in the Southeast Quadrant on bikes because there are, bike lanes almost all the way through.
I will just add something factually. It was on one of the slides, but I just happened to not read it for this session, and maybe I should have. There are approximately 750 households of the around 8,800 in South Burlington who do not own a car.
Oh,
So it's
very few.
well, it's a pretty significant number. It's, you're talking 8-9% of
Oh.
households. 8 to 9%, not 89%, 8 to 9%. So that's certainly not nothing, and it's reflective of some of our more urban areas, but does prevent some easy access to areas like Wheeler or the Southeast Quadrant.
Yeah, hold on, Lisa, go ahead.
Nora Senecal, and just to kind of pick up on what, I didn't ask this yet last night, but I mean, the households that don't have a car, but there may other be households where people are non-drivers that aren't captured in that number.
Right.
And 24% of South Burlington, and we don't know what kind of disability, but are disabled. So if you're talking about, I just want you said everything I was thinking about.
Oh,
so
sorry.
yeah, no, it's great. I thank you. It's like, yes, you said it very nicely. And I think when you're centering a lot of the summer community activities at Veterans Memorial Park, you're going to leave out anybody who, you're going to expect then everybody who lives on these corridors, right, where you're going to build density, to drive their car to Veterans Memorial Park in order to enjoy anything. And so I'm just wondering if we're talking about diversity and equity and inclusion, is there going to be any thought about having housing where people are disabled and live there, or lower income, or don't need a car to enjoy outdoors? Because it is healing and it's important.
Right.
And there's no open space available around Shelburne Road. Where's there going to be a park in that developed area? Because there really isn't land to buy, I don't think. I don't know.
Right, yeah. Go ahead, Penny, then Lisa.
I just want to piggyback on, you gave me an idea or a suggestion. If you recall, when we had the city's big party for whatever, how many 100 years, whatever, a couple of years ago, one of the things they did that was great was that they had a shuttle that ran from the University Mall to the center of the activity at Veterans. And I'm wondering if that is a way to, for summer activities, maybe there should be some kind of service that we, as a city, run shuttles sometimes on those evenings.
Sobu night out.
So, on Sobu night out, you run a shuttle that goes from point A to B to bring people there to address some of the things, that very kind of thing. Maybe folks would like to go, but they can't. But if you had a shuttle, maybe that they could get to easily.
Yeah,
I
the
don't know,
basement
just
of
an idea.
the elementary school is really.
Yeah. Oh, they did also the schools,
Yeah.
you're right.
Go ahead.
You have a car.
Go ahead, Lisa.
So I'm going to throw the other side of the coin out there. In one respect, not having all this public transportation out there where a lot of people can go to these areas is beneficial for the wildlife.
Well, that's
It's been, I'm sorry.
wildlife.
Yeah.
Beneficial for the wildlife.
Yeah.
Because you're right, you're not having the impact. But I guess something else I heard Nora say was, or you were alluding to, is that, is the Southeast Quadrant available for people? Is it affordable to live there? Is there affordable housing there? Or even housing affordable to regular working, class
No.
folks?
And why would you? We need affordable housing here where we've got services and transportation and facilities.
Well, I don't know. I'm asking the question. I mean, if there's benefits to being close to the Southeast Quadrant, why not? Why shouldn't it be accessible to folks that don't necessarily have as much money as the people that live there now? And sure, you provide the transportation and all that, but there's benefits, as Roseanne said, to being near nature and close to nature. So just a question. I mean, that's an equity issue, right? It's like, unless you can afford to live there, you can't live there.
Yeah, but you can't have both. You can't have dense housing and open space. One has to be sacrificed for the other.
Well,
And we've got lots of opportunities for housing
You could have spots.
all over the city.
having actually density saves open space. You can make, right, you can sort of look at it that way too, but go ahead, Roseanne.
Well, no, you can't have a house and a tree in the same spot. And if you're talking about the value of nature, building on it so that people can get close to it will destroy the thing they want to get close to. So we have to have some common sense here. But you talked about whether there's affordable housing in the southeast quadrant. And I believe there are. I believe some of the inclusionary zoning will cover that. I don't know about the South Village because I haven't kept track of but they have built apartments in the South South Village. And if they are by inclusionary zoning, so some of them will be affordable, but probably as affordable as any place else in the city from the standpoint of the price of the house. However, because you need cars, if you're in the suburbia and southeast quadrant, then by de facto, as Michael was alluding to, it becomes less affordable because now you have to own, maintain, and operate a car. So that's why the city has tried to put affordable housing along transit lines and in the inner city where people can walk. So I guess
Okay.
that.
Is the assumption that low-income people don't own cars?
Well, they'll have a higher rate of not owning cars.
Yeah, I know that.
Yeah,
But I guess, yeah, I just wanted to, I mean, some people do. I mean,
Yeah,
yeah,
Well, so
because they have to, yeah.
yeah, you have to, yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
It's not applicable here, but in very dense cities like Manhattan, having a car is a terrible burden and is totally unnecessary because the
They've got
public
public
infrastructure is there.
Yeah.
So we can't have that in the southeast quadrant, but we could have something approaching it along our transit lines, our urban design overlay district, and in our neighborhood development areas, which is basically the city center. We could have it, but we can't have good, efficient public transit without dense population.
enough people to use
Go
it.
ahead, Nora.
I just want to say, yeah, you're right about New York. It's terrible to have a car, even visiting, but one thing, I was just recently there, and one thing I noticed that kind of jumped out at me, and I haven't been to Central Park in a really long time, but it's gigantic, and it spans, many, I mean, obviously living along Central Park is prohibitive for just about most of the population, but you can get to it from other, way far, neighborhoods because you can get public transportation. And then the other thing is Riverside Park actually extends all the way up that's the one side of the Hudson River.
Yep.
And that actually, there's many neighborhoods that are along that. I mean, it's huge. It's just a whole big, and so why I'm pointing that out is it spans across many income levels, right? And it's available. It's like, it's like back to that idea of diversity.
It's along the West Side Highway.
Yeah,
and
it's
most
along
of
the West Side Highway. Yeah.
So is that how the southeast quadrant is seen? And I think I've heard that in the past, just as like the Central Park of South Burlington.
I've never heard
Oh,
that.
I've never heard that.
I a
don't
long
think
time
so.
ago.
No,
Yeah,
I
I
haven't
heard
heard
someone
that
say,
way.
like when they were visioning, like it's a big open green space. I mean, your folks are saying it's accessible, it's open space.
It was a lot of farmland.
Yeah.
And so, there's your huge tracts of land before
Right.
and then you had your travel corridor, which was Route 7 and Wollaston Road. And, I think that's just naturally where a lot of the developments first started spreading out because the farmers were in existence and farming.
Well,
And I've lived in Southeast Quadrant now for 22 years. And I guess, as a resident of this area, I have to admit that selfishly, I look at it and I say, can we please try to keep one area of South Burlington that still has the natural character, the open fields, the nature, and develop? We need housing. There's housing on the books that's going up, but can we please try to develop it smartly for our city so we don't lose this really great benefit for all of us? I mean, I happen to live in it, so I have the biggest benefit because I'm in the area. I can walk to the park. I can walk, I'm lucky. But, other people, it is with the few things we've said, but it's still, it's here. And if we don't take care, we could just lose it, and that would be a tragedy. It would be a tragedy to lose it.
So this is a really good, go ahead.
For me, it's a really interesting conversation because there are also benefits to living in a dense
Yes.
area. Easy access to services are there with their doctors, whatever, restaurants, cafes, grocery, and that's a certain pleasance of life that, yes, if you choose to live in a place where you may have to make, travel to gain all those services and access to services. The question, as I understand it, is how do we in South Burlington have a area where you have maybe this very dense population, this opportunity, easy access, which in some cases may make it more affordable for some. It also creates a certain amount of dynamic activity, city activity, and at the same time maintain some great outdoor areas.
Right.
But
Highly
make
also-
it possible for people to go both ways, preferably not in their own personal car, which just clutters up one end or the other end. And that is connected by bikes, by public transport, by walking. And that way it's a win-win. It's not an either or who wins, who loses. We've maintained in a small area both things. So we had our cake and eat it too. And we've ensured that everyone has access to the benefits of both.
Not that it's the most relevant, but I just happen to have my computer here. So I just Googled how big Central Park is, and it's 843 acres. So when you're talking about Wheeler being 110, like Central Park is enormous. And when we're saying, I don't want to insert myself into this conversation too much, but
You heard it here first.
the idea that you can't have really significant open space next to very dense housing, I think is a little bit of a falsehood.
Well, but you just said it, that's 843 acres.
Yeah.
So you have, yes, you have it, but it's against a much bigger platform. We only have 110 and you know what I mean? It's not
in a publicly
apples
owned
for orange.
space. But there's got to be that many acres in the Southeast Quadrant and more, but
Not necessarily.
Not that are
that's-
still open,
that's-
no.
that's zone.
Well, you've got the whole Great Swamp area, Hubbard, which is.
That's
of
another
just
60.
Hubbard.
yes.
I mean,
So-
maybe we have
So let's you guys, let's
I'd
Let's not
I'd like to comment on what you said, and which is, yes, we can have it. What it needs, what it requires is imaginative and courageous zoning. You need to zone.
Well, let me ask this question because Kelsey, it's on this topic, and this is a good discussion. So you guys might get mad, but that's okay. But that's why I'm here.
All right, Joe, go
Well,
for
you're
it.
mad at Joe, he gets
But
to go home.
Kelsey, I'll just go home. Kelsey brought up the question early on, the policy question of, you have houses on bigger lots in the Southeast Quadrant, so there is room for infill. So you could have a little bit more density. It may not be the same intensity as multifamily housing that's 4 stories high here, but I guess what's going through my head is like, what is the Southeast Quadrant's role in helping to meet housing demand? Is it just, no, all the housing gets kind of tucked in over here and built up over here? Or is there some responsibility there to help kind of deal with that problem?
Well,
Can I address, are we talking about building in the Southeast Quadrant now? Or are we a little off tangent?
No,
or?
yeah. So I don't know if were you at the start of the presentation and Roseanne?
No, the link wasn't working, but let me, in talking about that, the uniqueness of the Southeast Quadrant is, as you've heard, and Penny just mentioned it as did others, is that it's really the only place in the city where you do have the magnificence of nature all around us. When you put dense housing on that, well, not only do you disrupt the soils, the wildlife corridors, losing the trees and the meadows, you also lose the beauty of nature. And we don't talk enough about what beauty the importance of beauty in our lives for our spiritual and mental health. So it would definitely change how the rural areas look if you put dense housing into areas and save a little patch of green. And that's my fear as when those who are trying to sacrifice nature for housing, that's what will happen to the rural part of South Burlington, which is the Southeast Quadrant, which is the only part of the city that looks like Vermont. So anyway. Yeah.
Go ahead, Penny. I don't know if
Oh,
Michael was first, but
well,
you can fight it out.
I guess I don't, what was I gonna say? So to your question is, you know, if somebody who already owns a 4-acre lot and has just one house on it, if there were zoning that allowed them to put 2 or 3 more housing on it, personally, I don't necessarily, think that's so terrible.
Right.
What I would hope would not happen is that a developer can buy the 20-acre plot and put 20 houses on it that are 1 acre each. That's where I'm sort of like,
Right.
no, please, let's not go that way. So if you're saying infill to larger parcels that are already built and have already destroyed that connectivity or that nature and whatever, you know, it's already gone. The pavement's already there. The sewer is already, you know, there's, so yeah, so I mean, I see that we have, sure, Southeast Quadrant has some responsibility for that type of thing, but not where we can preserve what we
Right.
can have. That's where I draw the line.
Yeah, go,
Yeah.
Michael,
Just
then
one
I'll,
line.
oh, sorry. Go ahead. Is
Sorry,
it
Megan.
Megan? Hi, thanks for, oh, we can't hear you.
We can't hear you, Megan.
She's on.
Well, but she's not she's muted, but.
Oh, I had that problem.
Uh-oh.
It's sort of like
Unmute.
pantomime.
Unmute yourself.
She had, but.
She had, but it wasn't coming.
Try
through.
your microphone again.
Sometimes when you log into Zoom, it asks you if you want to use your microphone or not.
Check it,
Yeah.
then you're.
You may want to log back in and look and make sure you answer yes when it asks if you want to use your microphone.
You can put something in the chat as well,
Yes.
if it's something you easier.
Just excited to get
say.
someone else from online weighing in.
Actually, South Village was designed to kind of cluster the houses together
Yes.
with smaller lots.
Mayfair
Well,
Park.
and I mean,
So-
does that make
this
sense?
is not a
Some people
con-
don't. Oh, sorry, no
Yes.
conversation. I apologize.
No, that's okay. It's a small group. It's hard not to do. Go ahead, Mike.
An example of zoning that would contribute to more dense housing is that we have a zone, an R1 zone. It's not in the southeast quadrant, it's on the southwest quadrant. It's on the west side of Spear Street. There's a whole slew of zoning that is R1, which means 1 house per acre. That should be rezoned for R3, R4, so that in the future, when people move and sell, there's an opportunity for either accessory dwelling units or additional homes. And that's, Spear Street will eventually have some public transit because of South Village. Doesn't have it yet, but it'll come.
And there's a whole bunch of stuff down in Shelburne that was built too. I mean,
There was what?
I mean, if you look when like a couple years ago, I don't know how long it's been, but like.
You'll have to speak up, I'm a bit
Oh,
deaf.
no, that's okay. If you go all the way, if you keep going down Spear Street to Shelburne, they've built up a lot on Spear Street. So that's a lot of people possibly coming into, passing through, right? You
Yeah,
know,
where
so,
Quiniasca is on the other side of the road.
Okay.
yeah.
Mike, did you have?
No, I just was
Oh,
also.
you were just pointing out. Yeah.
To give,
Okay.
make sure she had a chance.
I don't know.
Anybody else online want to weigh on this exciting issue? I mean, how do you preserve what you value in the Southeast Quadrant and still be equitable? And so everybody can enjoy it. And any thought, Anybody else that hasn't spoke already want to weigh in on that question?
You need to tell me why it isn't equitable.
Well, we've already established that it's not very accessible. It's available. Some of it's publicly available, but
Yeah.
it's not
So,
necessarily
well, let's
easy
move
to
it.
get to. Yeah, right. So you're saying provide, and I think it might have been Roseanne at previous meetings, if we're going to do density places, make sure that there's green spaces incorporated within it. But it's not just about a park next to an apartment building here. It's about what's unique in the Southeast Quadrant and having people be able to have access to it. And part of having access might be living in it, right? And so.
You can't have it and live in it, as Roseanne Greco just
Well, no,
explained.
but I think maybe you can.
But there's another aspect to this. Classic good urban and regional planning all over the world leaves big chunks of green space between each town and village.
Right.
And that is the only one we've got between us, between South Burlington and Shelburne, or well, not Williston, but to some extent Williston, yes, because on the other side on the east side of Heinsberg Road, there's quite a lot of open space. So it's important from a regional, urban and regional planning point of view, and it's normal in other parts of the world and probably in other parts of the United States as well,
Okay.
to have that.
All right. I'm just asking and pushing back a little bit.
It's
There's
accessible.
also issue on the equity question, because also, I remember in the 2016 plan, they were talking about also townhouses and, down here in the center. So the townhouses being a little bit larger, maybe a family, maybe a little higher buy-in price in an apartment. Because the idea is that there are certain benefits to living in an urban area in terms of access to stuff. So that is also, the question is, I get your point, but the goal is to try to create some sort of balance in terms of people's preferences, in terms of access to nature, in terms of access to sort of a more urban environment, while at the same time, not making it a zero-sum choice, but allowing very easy access by transport and connecting the two. So instead of saying this and this, is that this is part of a
The whole system.
integrated. I assume that's our objective.
Okay, good.
I'd like to comment on what's happened in the past.
Okay, then go ahead, but
On-
let me
Roseanne.
Roseanne again. Yeah.
I want I've only lived here 15 years, but I have friends who have lived here all their lives. And if you go back maybe 20 or 30 years, the people who lived here then could walk to an open space right in their neighborhood. There were open spaces everywhere. And so there wouldn't be a discussion about how do you get to an open space or a meadow or a forested area, because they were all around us. But then the housing got built out, and now they're not close by anymore. They're getting farther and farther away as we build houses. So it's sort of a convoluted argument when you talk about you can't get to the open space because there are houses there. And if you build more houses, then it's going to be even farther to get to open space. You're going to have to go to Shelburne and then Charlotte and et cetera. So it's essential we protect what we got, because it's still within a short drive, a comfortable bike ride, or a long walk from any place in the city to get to some of our open spaces. We should have more what we used to call pocket parks, but with infill, you're losing those as well. So rather than thinking about building over the area that has open space, you have to think about how can you maybe revegetate some of the areas that have already been built up.
Okay, Michael.
I'm going to use two examples of bad planning sprawl: Cider Mill and Butler Farms. That's the worst kind of urban sprawl, and we can't do that anymore because it wastes a huge amount of land. So what we've done is we've plonked a lot of houses on 150 acres of land or whatever it is at Cider Mill. Each house has a little yard, so there's a little green space. But if we clustered those, as is good design, clustered those houses into 50 acres, the other 100 acres would be open space, green, for people who live there and people who visit there. So, you know, it can be done, but we've used up the land that we had. And we've got another one happening at the corner of Spear and Swift.
Is there, I'm trying to remember, is there multifamily, there's multifamily units in that one, right? The one that's,
There are
Spear
some,
Meadows?
Spear
yeah, but
Meadows,
they're
yeah.
very big and nobody can afford them.
Yeah.
wait, the
Okay,
the
let's,
multifamily ones?
Let's move on to,
Yes, there are multifamily.
Okay.
let's move on to climate resilient, which was actually the second one. I kind of saw my notes wrong. But anyway, this is a good
Stay out.
discussion.
Stay out of this
They're
one.
all related. They're all overlapping anyway. So it's the same question. It's like, well, how to make the Southeast Quadrant climate resilient? Is it climate resilient now? When you think of,
It's the only place it
It
is a
might
little
be.
bit
It's up
climate
high.
resilient.
It's, have to worry about ticks probably. And, but, what are the thoughts there? Go ahead.
Yes, we can make it. It is climate resilient, and it is one of our only opportunities to make South Burlington more climate resilient. It could be improved by making the wetland buffers wider and making the buffers around habitat blocks, either make them wider or have them at all, because we don't have many, even though that was recommended by the study that was done by an environmental research consulting group. So yeah, we need to keep the grasslands grass, keep the woodlands wood, maybe reforest some parts of the lands there that are open now. I mean, I know one of the landowners is experimenting with planting walnut trees, and he's found a hybrid chestnut trees, because there were billions of chestnut trees in America and they died. But he's found a hybrid that he's trying to cultivate there. So there's lots of ways that we could make it more resilient, but it is one of the things that gives us the opportunity. There may be a future where we're going to be short of food, because where we grow it now out west is going to become a desert, maybe. So we might need this land.
Right. It's also carbon sequestration
Yeah,
as
absolutely.
well. And,
Huge.
you know,
I don't want to go into all that stuff.
No, don't, please, please.
Because I
don't wanna
happen
be
to
here
have
all
served
night,
on the Climate
so.
Action Task Force, and it's a pet project of mine.
good.
As you also said, they're all overlapping. So obviously, if we go back to the issue of creating greater public transport, where people are coming in to to enjoy the open space or the memorial park, or whether people want to come into the city center to do whatever they need to do, you know, if a convenient, reliable, predictable, not time intensive option of public transport was available, that itself, you know, means less cars on the road.
Were you here last night?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there was that, I'll just bring it up again because the idea or the need for, you know, a South Burlington circulator, because it's sort of hub and spoke now and it doesn't go out to the Southeast Quadrant at all at the moment. So,
Help us get out of the cars too.
yeah,
Yeah.
right.
We all win.
Yeah.
What other ways, where are there opportunities to make the Southeast Quadrant more climate resilient? Or are you good?
Biodiversity.
Go ahead, Nora.
I have a question about the impact. And I'm not saying we should do something about it or can do something about it. It's more of a question, maybe it's for Kelsey, in terms of the regional planning, if the outlying, so one question I have is like, okay, I'm not proposing a solution, it's just an observation and a concern. Okay, so one concern I have is that if other towns build up a lot, they're gonna have to, they may need to, we don't know what they're gonna do for a living, but they may end up coming through to South Burlington or Burlington down those corridors of Spear and
Dorset.
Dorset and Heinsberg Road. And I'm more just throwing a question out there is like, is there any discussion about, like, just kind of thinking about the impact? We could do all the climate stuff we want, but cars on the road contribute a lot to climate degradation. And so, this isn't a question, but just wondering, like, what thought is,
Can
that's
a
the
city,
discussion, yeah.
can we have like a park and ride like they have for the highways
Sure.
in a community?
Sure.
I mean, like, you could have a park and ride for all the Williston people that have to come to Southborough. I'm just making that up. but
Well, it's a
that,
good point.
you
I
know,
mean, it's,
Could we do that? Because you're right. Because you said in your beginning of your statistics,
Mhm.
how many people don't actually live here.
Yep.
But come in and commute to here.
Yep.
So, so to improve our climate resilience, we could find ways to help those people who come in to work in South Burlington every day
Yep.
get here without using their cars a little more efficiently.
Yep,
Whether
and
it's a park and ride
I
or the
mean,
bus or the whatever.
I can say that our surrounding municipalities are all also working on climate change and
Right.
climate change mitigation to varying degrees. There's sort of different scales that they have the capacity and ability to attack these issues. So we're not sort of on our own trying to do this. Other communities are also trying to do this. But I think my point of what I said earlier, and I think your point now is we can't be only thinking of, like, yes, public transportation circulator within South Burlington to get from Shelburne Road to Williston Road and vice versa is something, but there's a significant number of people who, yeah, they live in Heinsberg. There's people, significant numbers of people commute into Chittenden County from St. Albans and from Stowe and from
Milton.
Middlebury and Milton and Huntington, all sorts of places that are not even the core of Chittenden County. They're much farther and in much more rural areas. So there's a lot of moving parts and there's a lot of opportunity for transportation solutions that would have to be tackled region wide and not just South Burlington.
Another way we could improve it is a really good charging network for e-bikes and
Cars.
EVs, electric vehicles, would help a lot. And then that would lead the market. If charging was available all over South Burlington, accessible, more people would buy electric cars. And so the market would take care of a lot of our emissions that we have in local transportation. I can't speak for long distance because we don't have any control over it. But if we had the charging network, a lot more people would get EVs.
well,
And it's happening.
and this spills over to the next goal, which is opportunity oriented. And it's about being engaged in the broader regional community. And park and ride in Addison County would be the thing that would take pressure off of Spear and Dorset Street, if it was in the right spot. And so
Virgins has one.
Vir-
Virgins has one?
Virgins, it's on Route 7.
There's one
There's one in Heinsberg too.
Yeah.
There's also a bus.
Richmond.
There's a bus in
Richmond.
Heinsberg.
And Richmond.
Yeah, in Richmond, there's one being built finally after many, many, many years, one finally being built again in Williston. It'll be open pretty soon.
And there is a bus system that runs from Middlebury into Burlington.
Right. But I guess the point is like being engaged in, it is important to be engaged in what's happening at the regional level because, you can influence that. And I know South Burlington is, they're part of the Regional Planning Commission. You have great representation at the State House and all of that. But, and you have the opportunity to sort of push your views up through those people and try to get things done that way.
I guess I have a question that I would like to raise about being part of a regional community, specifically about the Southeast Quadrant. What role do all of you see the Southeast Quadrant playing, not just for South Burlington residents, but as an asset to the region? And what can we be doing to bolster the Southeast Quadrant as not just a South Burlington thing, but a regional asset?
Leave it as it is and let people come visit.
Right.
I mean, promote that
It is an asset
welcome them
that's,
to come have a picnic. I
it's
don't
an
know.
asset that benefits the whole region. It's not just the however many 100 acres it is that's of open space. I mean, I don't know, maybe 500 acres of open space, probably less than that. But yeah, it's a benefit to the entire region because of the environmental benefits it gives us in biodiversity. That we're not losing it. We're not losing species as fast as we would if we didn't have it. There's lots of opportunity for beekeepers because they're pollinators in these fields that the bees need to make the honey that we love. So there's plenty of regional benefits flow from the Southeast Quadrant.
Roseanne, if you don't mind, I'm going to give Darrell-Lynn a chance.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to say that when we're talking about this for the climate change and resiliency, we have a climate action plan that's been adopted by the City Council. They are currently, right now, developing the transportation recommendations that are in that plan. There's a whole group working on activating those and implementing the transportation ones. So I know we all want more and safer bike and ped and lots of things like that. But I think, I think if we would just implement the plan that's been adopted for the city, we would be a long way in protecting our natural resources. And that I think is very important. We have already done some significant things in this city to sacrifice for housing. We have to recognize, I can just tell you all, my stepchildren grew up playing with the O'Brien kids in the woods that were clear cut for that huge development that has the largest number of affordable housing that has been done in this city. There are 74 units, including 10 units for homeless, and somebody from COTS will be on staff there. That is a huge, huge investment for this city. So it is not as if we have not thought about equity, that we have not given up some things. And I understand, I know the O'Briens are making boatloads of money on that because it's huge development, but that's done. And I think what we need to be thinking about now is a serious implementation of the climate action plan, all of it, for new builds, existing buildings. We have a lot of work to do, and we've planned it. It's not like we're doing pie in the sky now. So I just think, all right, I've said it. I don't want to be that repetitive. Let's just do it, all right?
Yeah.
Let's implement the plan.
Great point. Yep, thanks.
Thank
Go ahead, Roseanne.
Echo everything Darrell-Lynn just said. And yeah, and we sacrificed a forest, and we're getting 900 houses, and we lost the forest. I'm not going to weigh in on what I think is more important. But you talked about how our area can help the other, how the natural area can help others. And Michael mentioned it. We have lots of open space that is accessible to anybody, fields and forest. A lot of people from out of South Burlington come here to enjoy that. I know some people come here to paint the landscape. I've run into them a few times because it's so magnificent. They're not from South Burlington. They live elsewhere in Vermont, but they come because the scenery is so beautiful and they make art as a result. We have amateur astronomers that come into the open meadows in Hubbard because you can see the night sky because it's away from the lights in the city. So currently people from out of our area are coming and benefiting from our open lands. So you're welcome.
Thanks. Come to Huntington too. Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
I think, not just Southeast, but South Burlington. The charm, at least for a new transplant to Vermont, is that every community has a different character. Winooski has this character. Essex Junction is developed, which is developing in its own way. Burlington, Shelburne, and the goal is not to homogenize.
Yeah.
The goal is to, and I am glad Winooski is its unique character because I enjoy going there for certain things that I can't find in South Burlington and vice versa. And I think and the fact that all of this is in close proximity, and in the summertime I can even do it with my family on a bicycle. It is why we moved here, and the goal is to keep all these unique communities and to be able to cross-pollinate and enjoy it. It strikes me.
You can join the 251 Club.
Yeah.
And go visit everyone.
Every municipality.
Any other thoughts? Thanks, everybody. This has been a really great discussion, but any other thoughts folks have
I
on?
just feel sorry for those people who signed off and didn't get to say what they
I
wanted.
know.
Yeah, I do too. It's technology.
They missed so much.
Yeah.
Well, no,
Well,
they had
They had
something to
something to
say.
say.
That's, I hope that they,
So I think we're pretty close to the time. We can probably wrap it up, but I want to thank everybody for your passion tonight. This has been a really good discussion.
We have to apologize for getting you off the rails.
No, that's okay. It's fun.
The rails go everywhere, Michael.
warmed up
You
from
don't
town
even know where
meeting.
the rails are.
But, so do you want to?
Yeah, so just thanks everybody for coming tonight. My spiel gets a little bit shorter every time. We only have 2 more of these public meetings. One next Wednesday is about housing. Next Thursday is about the Southwest. So generally Shelburne Road, Queen City Park, Farrell Street, the Orchards, that area.
Hadley Road area.
South side of Spear,
The south side,
I mean, the
the
west side
west
of
side
Spear.
of Spear, Allen Road, Swift Street, all kinds of areas over there.
Yeah, Joe, you obviously have picked up that South Burlington residents are very passionate about what they've got.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, good. That's good.
And there are a lot of them. I mean, the public engagement in South Burlington is not something I've seen anywhere else at this level.
So there's, speaking of that, there's also the online poll still available online. An opportunity there's a written comment box to just submit whatever written comments you may have. You can always email me directly, kpeterson@southburlingtonvt.gov, or our planning box at planning@southburlingtonvt.gov. Our office phone number is 846-4106. And you can always just come in and talk to us. We're around. Mike, you look like you had a question.
To Darlene's point, I think the just do it philosophy.
Yeah.
When does this all sort of,
Yeah.
I mean, it's wonderful that there's all this consultations going on,
Yeah.
these different views. For me as a news person, I'll be honest, I'm sitting in a lot of them just to, in a short period of time to hear how different people see different things in the community that, is my future and my family's. How does this all just sort of come together?
Implementation is.
Yep, so we're moving now from wrapping up these very open, early public comment, public meeting sessions, and into where I am drafting the draft sections that then will go to the volunteer committees and to the planning commission and to our staff departments. And then all suggestions and policy decisions that are made in that process will then sort of cycle back through me again. Members of the public are welcome at any of the volunteer committee meetings, our policy committee meetings, any of the planning commission meetings, with all of that intending by the end of June, we'll have a full draft.
and then there are public meetings on that, aren't
And then
there?
there's public meetings on that in July and into August, with the intention that end of August is when we go into the formal public hearing on what would be close to, if not a final version. With the long thing of about Thanksgiving being adopted by City Council.
But isn't it, I mean, if your question was about implementation, I think at the city level, it's happening all the time. I mean, the latest votes are probably a great example of that. So the bike bridge across I-89, which is an amazing project. I mean, that is moving forward and
It's got to be.
there's a lot going on.
Where you lose the federal money.
Yeah, that has some federal strings, yeah.
Creates a certain sense.
So
It has to start.
But there's a weekly listing of all the committee meetings that are going to happen, and because they have to be warned anyway.
Yeah.
So you can
And
pick up
whatever interests you, you can attend.
online or
It's nice to know that come Thanksgiving,
Yeah.
we all can sit around and have turkey and be thankful for the great.
I mean, knock on veneer wood, fake wood, something. Well, thank you, everyone. I hope
Thank
you
you,
enjoy
Joe.
your
Yeah,
evening.
thanks.
Thanks for attending.
Thank you.
So you say you're a new resident? When did you